for some other um, way to maybe question this definition. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying it's correct and applicable to everyone. But for now, it helps me, and it helps me see life in a different perspective, which is all I want. And so perhaps listen to this, and if you have a different opinion, I want you to share it with me, because who knows? Maybe I need enlightenment, and your opinion could be what might lead me towards finding that light. Now, here is my definition. I believe that each and every one of us um, is unique. I believe that I am, and I'm going to use myself because I think probably that's the best way to do it. Let me speak of myself. I believe that I am an eternal spiritual being. And that eternal spiritual being, you can call it whatever you choose to call it. But remember this, whatever defines you, limits you. And this eternal spiritual being journeys from eternity and just is. And that means that there's no beginning and there's no end. But we journey from eternity and we come into time. And time is simply a fraction, a piece of eternity. But we journey through time for a reason. And that journey we call life. It's a journey, it's an adventure. I like to use the word adventure because it means you have some good and you have some not so good, and it depends on what perspective you have, and you might enjoy the journey. Some people might think life is beautiful, some think life is suffering. It doesn't really matter, but it's a journey. I journey from eternity into time. But I'm a spiritual being. My core essence, my true nature, is a spiritual being, and that spiritual being is perfect. There's nothing you can do in this plane or level of understanding to change how perfect you are as a spiritual being. To journey through life, which in time is what we call the cosmos world, I need to function. I need to be able to interact with my environment. And so I'm actually housed in what I call a body. I wear something called a garment. The way you put on a shirt, what you see, the person you see speaking to you right now is wearing a garment. What you see is my garment, is my body. I'm wearing this garment. But inside, the person wearing the garment is the spirit. And that spirit is perfect. So I'm a spiritual being. I'm living in a physical body. I'm journeying through time. I'm born. At the end of my journey, the spirit goes back to eternity. It goes back to wherever it's come from. Now, I can't tell you where that is. That's beyond today's session. But I depart from this body and the body remains. Now, I'm going to give you an example of what I mean very briefly. If you've ever lost a loved one, and I remember losing my brother, and the day he was laid to rest, I remember walking up and looking at his body. And the funeral, people coming in and walking around and paying their last respect. And I remember this very clearly, that I walked 3 times. I came back 3 times. Not because I was shocked, but because I kept saying, this is not him. No, this is not him. And that made sense so many years afterwards, because I then realized the spirit had left the body. The beautiful, gentle, kind person that I had known for so many years as my brother, that I had loved, wasn't the garment he was wearing, it was the spirit. So I came back 3 times because every time I walked past, I just said, it's not him. I know he's late, he's not alive, but you could see that he was simply wearing a garment, and his spirit brought the garment to life. Now here's the point I'm making. You and I are spiritual beings, I believe. Well, let me speak for myself. We journey through time to occupy and enjoy and live in this piece of time we call life. You need a body. Now, because you're a spiritual being and you're perfect, you've been given something phenomenal to help you bridge the gap between this spiritual being you are, that is all knowing, all intelligent, all wisdom, all wise, and can tap into any resource you want. You've been given something to help you bridge that. And that is something called the mind. So you are a spiritual being living in a physical body, and you have a mind. Some people call it a trinity. Some people call it, say, you're three in one. There are three parts to your personality. I like to use the word personality. It's probably more gentle. Three levels of consciousness: spiritual, mental, and physical. Most of you are aware of that. Now, why have I chosen this definition to define self? And the reason is this. Most people see themselves on the lowest plane of consciousness or awareness or personality. If all you do is think of yourself as who you are, by that what I mean, the physical being, the length of your hair, the color of your skin, your profession, where you were born, your preferences sexually, your outlook, what you like. If you define yourself just based on that, and by that what I simply mean is on the physical plane, is the lowest level of consciousness, is the least most important part of you, is the least important part of you, I should say. My life began to change when I realized that the spiritual being in me is perfect, and therefore I can't change that. And if I recognize that I was perfect in spirit, and that this garment will go back to dust eventually, and whatever I've achieved in this physical plane goes back to where it came from, and I can't take it with me at the end of life, I started to realize that there was some fundamental changes I had to make about life and myself. To make that change, I could only do that in my mind. And that's where the beauty of what I wish my father taught me begins. The mind. I wish I had been taught about the importance of self-identity and self-image, but more importantly, how do you re-engineer your self-image? How do you change it? How do you improve it? All of that happens in the faculty of your mind. Because in your mind is what I consider to be the most important gem, the most important gift that you and I have. You are a spirit, so it's not a gift. You're just a spirit, and you're perfect. But as you live in this earth, and on this earth, you have limitations. The spirit is limited because this is a physical world, it's not a spiritual world. But what you have that can help you make the journey the most beautiful journey of life, and to help you have what I call an exceptional adventure, you must understand how the mind works. And that is what I wish my father taught me, the importance of the mind. Because it's in the faculty of your mind that you redefine, you redesign your self-identity and your self-image. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, the mind can achieve. You and I are products of our mind. So however you see yourself today, it has nothing to do with your father. It has nothing to do with your mother. It has nothing to do with your past. It has nothing to do with your mistakes. It has nothing to do with your history. It has everything to do with your mind. You and I must learn that whatever defines you limits you. And however you've defined yourself, in many ways that you may not even recognize, you've limited yourself. And to change, what you must do first is choose. Who do you want to be? What do you want to do? What would you like to have? And then that allows you to have what I call a vision of who you want to be. And from that vision, you must ask yourself, what kind of self-image will I need to be able to be deserving of having all of these beautiful things that I've defined for myself? That's where you start to change your life. Now, I'm not going to dwell too much on the mind in today's session or self-image in today's session, because I intend to cover that, hopefully, in one of the lecture series much later down the line. But I will say this. You and I have a self-image. You better believe it. But here's probably one of the most important things that I'm going to say today. And that is, your self-image is multi-dimensional. And by that, what I simply mean is this. You don't just have one self-image. In every area of your life, you have an image of self. So, for example, professionally, there's an image you have of yourself. So you can meet someone who is an exceptional surgeon, but outside surgical rooms and outside the workplace, they don't see themselves as being worthy of living. They don't see themselves as being worthy of anything. Perhaps their relationships are not that great. Perhaps they're not happy. Perhaps they're really depressed. Why? Because they have a different image of themselves as an individual in their personal life. So you and I have categories of our life that we've defined for ourselves consciously or unconsciously. You might be a father, you have an image of yourself as a father. You might be a husband, you have an image of yourself as a husband. You might be, who knows, maybe a passionate lover, you have an image of yourself as a lover. But it doesn't matter what category, in every area of your life, you have an image of self. You and I must first of all study self. Study yourself and say, who am I really? How have I been living? Now, the way you know your self-image is to look at your results. Look at the results in your life. Your results never lie. The results tell the truth. I can look at your results and I can tell you the image you have of yourself. And here is the point. You can change your results if you're not happy with what you're getting. And the best way to do that is to change your self-image in that particular area. Now, that doesn't mean you just let go of who you've always been. No, what I'm simply saying is you go into that category of your life and you ask yourself, are my results giving me what I want? And whenever the answer is no, you must ask yourself, who would I have to become to be deserving of reaching that goal that I want? And the first step, the biggest mistake most people make in setting goals, I should say this before I end, is this. We set our to-do goals, to have goals, before we set our to-become goals. To set your to-be goals, you first must set and change the image of yourself. Create an image that is consistent with that person you want to become. So, lecture number 1, what I wish my father taught me was that we all have a self-image and we can change it anytime we want.